Alrighty. So like I was mentioning, make sure you're showing your time and effort, even if your situation hasn't completely overcome yet. Um, I know this was fairly new, but try to also have a main lesson that you learned. That just kind of brings your whole story full circle. It really shows that you took away something like bigger from your story. I know some of you are trying this out for your newer drafts. Totally fine. See if you can implement that just so it can kind of round out your essay altogether. Alrighty, so for many of you, you're done with your first draft, so you might not need this setup anymore. But for those of you who are also working on your drafts or like were recommended, like, hey, go back to your outline for your first draft into a second draft, make sure that you are following this up, especially the actions and lessons learned portion. Make sure you're going into more detail with that. So pick one or two actions that really helped you out for your certain subject, your leadership activity, your challenge, your educational opportunity, whatever the case was, make sure you chose two actions that really influenced you in that moment and go through those actions in detail. So you want to talk about what happened, what did you do, what did you learn, things like that. So if I'm cutting out, I am sorry. Alrighty. I think Audi just popped in too. Hey, Audi. So I don't know if my Wi-Fi will cut out again, but we had like a mini power outage here. So I'll let you know if anything else happens. But yes, anyways, is there any questions about PIQs, tips, any concerns about the assignment? Alrighty. So then about 2 weeks ago, we kind of gave you an idea of what your senior timeline or your senior timeline in the Y Scholars program looks like. Now, we definitely recommended for you guys to do a few things over the summer. So we're going to kind of review that now so you don't forget. So for the summer, we definitely want to make sure you're making it productive. It's your last summer to really delve into something without the worry of classes and homework. So we definitely recommend for you to do like job, internship, program, whatever you want to set your mind to, definitely try that out over the summer. It also goes hand in hand with your summer activities assignment. So make sure that is up to date as well. Another thing that we recommend during the summer is to look at your colleges. I know some of you might have changed your college options. Maybe you learned more about a certain college. Maybe you're thinking about private colleges. Maybe you're not thinking about private colleges anymore. Make sure you update that list. I would also definitely recommend during the summer, if you have the time, go out and visit these colleges. I know it's usually not recommended until like you get your acceptances and you have an idea of where you're going, but trust me, even when you get your acceptances, senior year gets pretty packed very, very fast. So I would definitely recommend you go to as many schools as you can during the summer so you have a really good idea of maybe where you want to go if you get accepted to the schools. Alrighty. Next thing is make sure you're still working on your PIQs. So and many of you guys who have kept on track and will finish your PIQs by the end of the 31st of May, then you're on the right track. You're going to have solid foundations for your PIQs, but that doesn't mean you're going to stop revising and editing. You should definitely continue to do that over the summer. Especially if you're going over the word limit, I would definitely recommend you to go back, see what you can cut out, see where you might want to like replace something so that way Jose and Dom don't get PIQs that are like 500 words long and greatly have to be reduced. So definitely I would recommend for you to take this summer and reduce on your end as much as you think is necessary. Another thing you can do during the summer that we've definitely been talking about in family meetings is the Summer Academy, the College Mindset Academy here at the Y Scholars. No, it is not mandatory. It is completely optional. But if you are struggling with PIQs, if you want more help about like college, if majors, things like that, I would definitely recommend for you to check it out. Audi, I believe, in the next week is going to be reaching out to students who filled out the interest form to see you guys about signing up and registering. So just keep an eye out for that. About the cost, there is scholarship options. You will definitely have to be discussing those with Audi. But if you're worried about costs, there's different ways you can do it to make sure that it's not kind of a big burden on you or your family members. Alrighty. So with that being said, the next thing that we definitely recommend for you to do over the summer is research and apply to scholarships. So I know that many of you have heard about the Posse Scholarship. Maybe you've heard Audi talk about it. Maybe you've heard Jose talk about it in like some of the financial aid growth mindset workshops. That's definitely one you can look into. If you are interested in going to some of like the out of state schools on a full ride, out of state tuition is very expensive. So if you're thinking of going on a full ride, you could definitely check that out. The Questbridge Scholarship is also a very good scholarship. It is partnered with a lot of private schools, a lot of liberal arts colleges. So, and it gives you also a full ride there as well. It also gives you like a connection to mentors, alumni. It's a very good scholarship to get your name out there. Same with the Gates Scholarship. It is also a full ride scholarship. It's kind of a full ride to the schools they are partnered with. I believe they also have some big name private schools as well. It's just kind of researching which schools you want to be attending. Now, obviously, these scholarships are a very big payout. It also has a lot of things you're going to be putting into these scholarships. So, for many of these scholarships, they're going to be asking for transcripts, letters of recommendation, more personal statements. That's kind of all the work you have to put into these scholarships. And many of them are actually due pretty early. I believe the Questbridge and the Gates Scholarship is due, I believe, mid to late September, which is only about a month since you guys are in school. So you kind of have to get the ball rolling in summer so that way you're not kind of running into the crunch time when you're coming into senior year. If you have questions about any of these kind of scholarships, I know you can reach out to Audi or Jose about the Posse Scholarship. They have more information about that. For the Questbridge Scholarship, I will also be available during the summer to help you out. I'm very intimately familiar with the Questbridge Scholarship because it was kind of the scholarship that was advertised at our school quite a bit. We had a few students from our school be Questbridge finalists. One went to Stanford, one has been accepted to USC. So I'm very intimately familiar with this one. And then the Gates Scholarship, I can also offer some help. It's just about making sure you reach out during the summer so you're not also running into like kind of getting it late or not getting it in at all. Alrighty. With that being said, is there any questions about summer scholarships, how to make it productive, such and so forth? Alrighty. The other thing I definitely also recommend during the summer is for you to take college classes. So if you're kind of worried, okay, like I'm finishing up my senior year, I have my extracurriculars, what more can I do to make myself competitive? College classes are a great way to do so. You can also knock out some requirements, not only for college, but for high school at the same time. If you take an English class, that can be like your fourth year of English right off the bat. If you take like a math or science class, some high schools will also accept that for like a fourth year or third year of math or science. So you can definitely look into that. It also just shows that you're kind of getting on that early college start. And it's definitely beneficial for when you actually do go to your four-year university because those credits transfer with you. And it's one less class you have to take. So if you are not interested in doing any of the stuff that we mentioned, definitely look into college classes. It'll be very beneficial for many of you. Alrighty. With that being said, for today, if we don't have any connection errors, we're going to finish and brainstorm highs and lows today. So we're going to start off by brainstorming, reflecting on your experiences the last year. We're going to start from like June 2020, so the summer of last year to now. And you can pick any moments from then to now. We're gonna start off with 10. So I'll ask you to brainstorm 10 moments. I would definitely try to keep them balanced. Maybe you had more lows than highs. I definitely know that's understandable, but try to see if you can do 5 and 5 or keep it as balanced as you can where one doesn't outweigh the other. If you're wondering where you're gonna be putting these 10 key moments, like I mentioned, all of you were shared a Google Slides. So if you don't have that open, please open that now. On the fourth slide on that Google Slides presentation, that's where you'll be adding those 10 key moments. So for today, we're just brainstorming those moments. Next week, we're actually narrowing down on 3 and putting those on a timeline. So if you're unsure about what this presentation looks like at all, I'll go ahead and show you. So the presentation looks a little like this. It'll have obviously your name at the top. Give me a second. It'll have your name at the top. It'll say highs and lows 2020, 2021. All of you guys have the same template. It also looks very similar to last semester's. Here on slide 4, this is where you'll put your 10 key moments. Again, try to have 5 and 5 balanced. Try to make sure it's 5 highs, 5 lows as much as you can. If you can't think of 10, I would say 8 minimum key moments. So that way you have options to pick from for your timeline. So we're going to take, I believe, a quick break, but after the break, we're going to start brainstorming some moments together. So that way you kind of have an idea, okay, which moments should I pick? If you're kind of worried you might not get to 10 moments right away, we're going to brainstorm together. While we're brainstorming, definitely writing your key moments if like the situation applies to you or if you have something similar. So that way we can finish off the 10 key moments today. You do have to have your list of 10 done by the end of seminar. So make sure you are finishing it up today. Alrighty, so with that being said, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break. So let me see what time it is right now. So we're at 4:14. Oh no, I think I might have froze again. Oh no, there we go. Did I freeze? Did I freeze? Did I freeze? Did I freeze? No? Okay. So we're at 4:14. We're actually going to be about 4:15. So if everyone can please come back at 4:17, I'll have the clock running. I will see you guys in 2 minutes. Alrighty, so we're at time. So if everyone can start returning now. Turn your cameras on if you can. If you can't have cameras on, please make sure that you just send me a message that you're here. We're still at 4:16, so I'll give you guys about 30 more seconds. Alrighty. So for the rest of you, if you can't have your camera on, send me again a chat that you're here, you're present. Emily, I got yours. Awesome. Glad to know that you returned. Alrighty. Christina, you're back. And I think Angel, you're back. Awesome. Alrighty. So what we're going to do now then is we're going to go through like scenarios, situations, examples of key moments that you can put on your list. While we're doing these examples, I'll give you like 30 seconds to a minute. Sorry. We'll give you guys about 30 seconds to a minute so that you guys can respond, put them on your presentations. For some of them, I might ask for volunteers, some of like the more positive ones. Some of the heavier ones will definitely just give you a minute to reflect back. And if you have them, you can put them on your list. And then at the very end, I'll give you guys just 5 minutes overall that if you haven't finished your list, to finish it up. So with that being said, that's not what I wanted. Going on to the next slide. So a few key moments. So when we talk about key moments, when we talk about, okay, having these moments on your list, when we talk about key moments, we mean like experiences that happened to you, that changed you as a person, that maybe changed your attitude, your beliefs, your ideas. I know that a lot has happened, unfortunately, in the world in the last year alone, in the last academic year alone. So maybe you had something that changed your mindset, your viewpoints. How did that affect you? When did it happen to you? It doesn't have to be just positive. It can also be, negative moments. It can be a situation that wasn't so positive, happy, or light, but you learned something from it. It changed you, it changed your beliefs, your attitude. So when we talk about key moments, we mean moments as those. So a few examples of key moments. We could definitely talk about situations where you were kind of taught your abilities as a leader. I feel like during the pandemic, many of us became caretakers for our siblings, and many of us became also teachers and, counselors and, interpreters for our parents a lot more. So maybe you kind of realized those situations where you were kind of a leader in your own family, in your own household. Maybe you had interactions with other of your classmates or peers where you had to keep them motivated, also keeping you motivated. It can be a moment like that. It can be a success story, or it can also be a moment where you try to do something, but you realize it just wasn't going to be possible. So, for me, for example, like a story where I realized, I tried to be a leader, but it didn't work out as great was, I think, last academic year, I was planning to be again in the ASUC for 2 positions. If you don't know what the ASUC is, it's pretty much like ASB or like student gov, but like on the university level. So I was going to have 2 positions on that the same way that I did my first year, but I realized it was just too much to take on. I was very stressed and overwhelmed with one position. So it was kind of a failure in the sense that I definitely could not lead 2 groups at the same time, and I had to drop one, unfortunately. So it was that kind of situation where I realized, I take more on my plate than I can chew or eat or whatever the metaphor is. So I have to like start making sure I balance out my time. It can be moments like that. It can also be moments like where you realized at home you can't be a caretaker for all your siblings. You can't be their teacher and like their second mom or their second, older parent. It can be a situation as like that as well. So any situation where you realize you kind of had to be a role model, the leader of the team, you can talk about that in a key moment. Alrighty. Another key moment you can talk about is maybe a time that you helped solve a problem, either for yourself or for others. So I know that some of your peers have mentioned, during the pandemic, some of you have partnered up with one of your classmates, maybe your best friends, and that you have similar classes with, and you guys do study sessions together. You do homework together, so that way neither of you falls behind, neither of you is unmotivated to not do their work. That's definitely something you can talk about. Kind of like the pandemic might have made you feel much less motivated to do work or to dedicate time to work. So you kind of brought together you and your friendship to finish up academically. You can talk about that. I'm going to talk about any other situations during this pandemic where there's been a problem. It doesn't have to be like this huge problem, but there was a problem for you that you needed to fix for yourself, for your friends, for your family members. It doesn't have to be a success story. Like I mentioned before, it can be something where you tried it out and realized this wasn't going to work, but you took something valuable away from it. So you can definitely talk about those moments. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to kind of think back on the last 2 examples we've done. If you have any situations that are similar to that, definitely write them down in your list, and then we'll kind of go from there. So about like 15 seconds for you to kind of reflect, think back. In the last academic year, pretty much all of your junior year and the first half of summer or the second half of summer, did you have a moment like this? And if you did, you can write it down. Don't give us too many details yet. We'll focus on the details part next week, but you can give us like a sentence about what that key moment was. Alrighty. So then another key moment that you could definitely talk about, and this one probably will be very common and very easy to go to for many of us, was a bad day that you had this last academic year. The kind of day that you really hope to never go through again. It's just that kind of day where you were like, dang, that was rough. I don't know how I made it through it, but you did. And you also, want to make sure that because of that, you kind of realize what was a takeaway from that situation. And many of the bad days we have, there is something we learn about ourselves or about the situation in the moment. What did you see? What value did you see in the experience you went through? So, for example, while you guys are kind of reflecting back, for me, I could definitely tell you the worst day that I had this last academic year was during LSAT testing. I know that I kept you guys in the loop of like my law school journey, and towards the end, it was a lot of successes. At the beginning, it really wasn't. When I took my test, I was about 10 points, yeah, 10 points less than the average for the Berkeley Law applicants. So I was like, wow, my life is over. I cried about it. I was like, I don't know where I'm going to go on. What am I going to do if I can't go to this college? And it was really tough. I kind of just had the whole world sink on me because I was like, it just sucks. So I felt bad about it, but then I realized, that's kind of life. I'm not going to have the test scores I want. I'm not going to have sometimes like the jobs that I want or the opportunities that I want. And it's kind of sacrifices I have to make, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be something better for me out there. And I can't wallow in self pity forever. So, although it was a really bad day, I kind of learned I have to move on. It's just kind of that moment as I come into the adult world that it's going to happen too often, anyways. So that's definitely a very bad day, the kind of day I definitely don't want to go through again. I wouldn't want to go through again, even knowing that I have so much success now. I would never want to do it again, but it taught me something. I took value from the moment. So definitely, if you guys have a moment like that, you should definitely kind of think back what happened. What did you take away from the situation? What was like, it's rough, but X, Y, and Z. Well, what did you take away? So for this one, I'll definitely give you guys maybe like 15, 30 seconds to reflect, see what you guys might want to talk about. Maybe you have more than one bad day that you might want to write in your key moments. You can definitely do so. Again, though, make sure you keep your 10 key moments balanced as much as you can. Try to do 5 highs and 5 lows so one doesn't outweigh the other. Alrighty. Sorry. Okay, so then moving forward, other key moments, and we'll definitely actually have a moment to share out loud for this one. Other key moments that are kind of on the more positive side that you might want to talk about are experiences that you love or are grateful for. And they can be in school, at work, if you have a job, at home, and the wise scholars, or maybe your other activities that you're doing. So I know some of you had sports and you're starting up sports again, or were able to actually do your sport during the pandemic. Maybe you're grateful for that. Maybe, despite being remote learning, you actually did really well this academic year and your GPA is pretty solid. You can definitely talk about those key moments. Maybe at home, you got to spend more time with your family, with your siblings, build closer connections instead of, before where you might have been in school all day, got home, were tired, did homework, and went to bed. Now you can spend more time with your family members who also might have a little more time outside of work. So, whatever happened this academic year that you're really grateful for, that, you wouldn't trade that experience for the world, you could definitely talk about stuff like that. Maybe you went out and you actually did travel. Maybe you went out and saw a new family member. Maybe you kind of had a moment with your family that you didn't have before that you're grateful for, big or small. You can talk about those things. So for this one, I'll actually give you guys about a minute to reflect, to think back, and I'll call on maybe 2 of you guys to share maybe a moment that you guys have. So minute, think back. Is there an experience this last academic year that you are grateful for? So for me, definitely very grateful for graduating because it's over. I'm glad it's done. It's also really nice, for those of you definitely who are first gen, or even if you're not first gen, graduating high school is such a big accomplishment because like the next step up. And trust me, when you get your degree, celebrate that, enjoy it, kind of bathe in the sunlight because you definitely put a lot of work in for that, and you don't realize until you're at university struggling your last senior year to finish. So I'm definitely very grateful for graduating and having my family there. What else am I grateful for? I think I mentioned this one last time we did highs and lows. I got to visit my family for the first time in over like 10 years in Chicago, and that was nice. I didn't know what the pandemic was going to look like. I don't know what the pandemic was going to look like, but that's definitely a moment I'm grateful for. So that's definitely something you guys can talk about. Visiting your family. Maybe you had a big accomplishment this year. So 15 more seconds, and then I'm going to call on two of you to share. Or if there's any volunteers, maybe I'll start with volunteers first. Does anyone want to volunteer for an experience that they're grateful for? Don't be shy. Alrighty, Kayla, go for it.
Well, I guess I had the opportunity to see family in another country this year. Yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing. Definitely glad that you were able to have that experience. Awesome. Let's see. Emily, do you have an experience this last academic year that you're grateful for?
I would say spending more time with my family or meeting up with a friend. Yeah.
Definitely. I agree. I think especially when you talk about meeting up with a friend, you don't realize how much you miss your friends, especially maybe if you have a best friend until you realize you couldn't hang out with them as often or you couldn't see them every day at school if they were like going to the same school as you. That's definitely something to be grateful for. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for sharing. So kind of moving on to the next one, maybe another key moment that you might want to talk about is a pivotal moment. So we're kind of talking about maybe smaller things now. If you had a big life change in this last academic year that you definitely want to talk about, write it down. So big lifestyle changes can include like maybe you moved houses, maybe you lost or gained a family member, maybe you had like something that completely rearranged your life, like you had to adapt to something. I don't think any of you guys moved too far, but maybe you moved like 30 minutes away from where you used to, or something that kind of really changed the way you do your everyday life. So for many of you guys, that might be like a bigger pivotal moment that is a little closer to home. Maybe some of you rearranged your room to also be your classroom and having to adjust to that, having to, have your computer desk now in the same area as your room. That can also be a big lifestyle change because it changes how now you view your house and being at home. It can also be like a moment where you realize that nothing would be the same after that. So usually that comes with, maybe losing or having a family member or something happening in your own life where you come to a realization that after this, there's going to be very big changes and you're never going to have to be able to go back to the way it was. So that can be something you can write down in your 10 key moments. Sorry. Alrighty, so moving forward, another key moment that you might want to talk about is maybe a time when you realized you had talents or skills this last academic year. So I know many of you probably might have started a hobby during the pandemic. Maybe you picked up something that you thought you didn't have time for before, and you actually realized you were pretty good at something. So maybe some of you guys actually went back to a skill or talent you had before. Could have been painting, could be art, could be a sport, could be reading, writing. When you went back to something and you realized you were actually pretty good at it, you were pretty solid at it, and now you've kind of learned to enjoy it. It can be also other things like knitting, crocheting, sewing. I know some of you actually gotten into sewing, which has been really interesting to hear how some of you guys have gotten so young into doing that. That's awesome. So for this one, we'll actually share as well, since it's a little on the lighter side. Take about a minute to brainstorm in the last year, your junior year, and maybe a bit of the summer. Did you develop a talent or skill? Did you kind of start working on a talent or skill that you had before that you didn't work on as much until junior year the pandemic started? For me, I actually started, so before I used to have like a physical planner, it was a bullet journal. When that was like the whole craze, like, oh, a bullet journal and, putting washi tape in it and whatnot. So I had that before, but I realized it was quite a bit of work. And so once I got into the pandemic and realized I just need something fast, I got into a digital planner. So I got an iPad, and during the pandemic, I started creating my own digital planner to plan out my time. It was a pretty useful skill that I didn't realize I could actually use. I started using stuff like Photoshop and like having the transparent thing behind photos to like fit them into my planner. So that was definitely something I started over the pandemic that I'm pretty proud of. I'm realized I'm sort of good at, and I could definitely develop into a skill. So I'll give you guys like 15 more seconds and then we'll go ahead and kind of share out for this one as well. Alrighty, so let's see. Let's start with Christina. Did you have a skill, talent that you started this last year?
I just picked up on. I used to draw, and now I'm drawing way more.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Yeah, that's definitely a talent or skill. I have no artistic vision whatsoever, so that's awesome to hear. Sophia, did you have a talent or skill that you got better at this last year?
I got better at like editing and digital manipulation, and then I started filming at the beginning of the pandemic and got better at it. So yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing. Yeah, definitely if you can work Photoshop and all that stuff, kudos to you. I did it once and like I was kind of over it because my professors made me do more creative tech projects like I did in Adobe Aero. If you don't know what Adobe Aero is, it's like a 360 kind of thing that you're supposed to set up. So I did that. And I had to use Photoshop for it and I didn't know what I was doing. So if you've developed that, that's awesome. I'm glad you got the hang of it. Alrighty, awesome. Anyone else want to volunteer any skills, talents that they started over this pandemic? Alrighty, we'll go ahead and move forward. Awesome. So other key moments that you can put on your list if you haven't done so already is moments that you had a tough challenge. And again, similar to when we kind of talk about you don't necessarily have to finish overcoming that challenge for your PIQs. You don't necessarily have to finish overcoming that challenge to put it on this list. It's still moments that you are facing that maybe changed you as a person, maybe changed the way you view the world, life, other situations. You could definitely write those down in your key moments. Some of these might overlap with like pivotal moments that you had, like maybe the loss of a family member. Maybe many of you will be talking about remote learning and how that affected you. Make sure that you kind of keep in mind what really affected you in those details so that next week we can put those on your timeline. Alrighty. So with that being said, if you have not finished already in your slides, in your PowerPoint on slide number 4, you need to have 10 key moments that you went through this year. So quickly reviewing, it can be moments where you were a leader and you led others, you solved a problem, you had a bad day, maybe you had a great experience that you're grateful for, you had a life change, you realized or developed a skill or a talent, or you overcame or are still dealing with the challenge. So it can be any of these things. It can be a culmination of these things combined. Make sure that you have 10, very minimum. I would say 8 if you really can't come up with 10. Again, try to keep them balanced with like 5 highs and 5 lows so you have options to pick from when we do your timeline. And if you're unsure again where you're going to be putting these, I will show you guys on the slides. So going back to the slides, again, your slides should have your name, highs, lows, 2020, 21, and you'll be doing it on slide number 4. You guys have about 5 minutes to finish this up. Again, you should have been doing it while we were kind of brainstorming together. So you have now 5 minutes to wrap it up. And if you're already done, please send me a message in the chat so I can check it off. So I'll give you 5 minutes starting now. If you're done, send me a message in the chat that you finished so I can check it out. Everyone needs to be done with their 10 key moments by the end of seminar. It is crucial for next week's work. So please make sure you finish it up. Alrighty. Kayla, you finished. Let me go ahead and check yours. I'm going to pause my screen so that way no one can see each other's. Alrighty, Kayla, I have yours open. Awesome. I like it. So the only thing I would definitely do, I know you did it for some of them, like you put, I think like it didn't go well. Make sure you put in parentheses whether it was a high or low. So that way it's just more easily identifiable. But other than that, you're good. Thank you, Kayla. Don't leave just yet. We're gonna finish up today and then we can head out. So I think 4 of you are still working on it. When you're done, again, make sure you send me a message that you finished so I can check it off. You do need to have the 10 by today. Yes, Audi, I got your message. Don't worry. So that way, so I don't forget, Emily, Kayla, and Christina, if you guys can stay back a few minutes after seminar, don't worry, it's nothing terrible. Audi just has a message for you guys. So make sure you guys stay. So in case you guys don't know who I called, Emily, Kayla, and Christina, if you guys can stay back. Alrighty. So for the rest of you guys, you have about 3.5 minutes to finish up. So I do need your 10. When you are done, send me a message, raise your hand so I can check it off. Christina, you finished. Awesome. Let me check yours out. Alrighty. Okay, Christina, it looks good. Same thing with you, like I told Kayla, just make sure you put in parentheses whether it was a high or a low, so that way it's just more clear. And then just be ready so that next week you can add a little more details into these things, okay? All right, so about 3 more of you guys that needs to wrap up. About 2.5 minutes left. When you're done, send me a message so I can check it out. So for the rest of you who are done, next week, what you guys will be doing out of the list of 10 that you guys have completed, that's why it's beneficial and essential you finish your 10 today. You're going to narrow it down to 3 highs and 3 lows. Very similar to what we did last semester. So for those of you who are done, if you actually want to go back and bold, highlight which 3 highs, 3 lows you want to be talking about in your timeline. For those, we're going to go into a little more detail next week and put them on your timeline officially. Alrighty, Sophia, you finished. Let me check yours off. Okay. Sophia, I think you're good. And I think you separated half and half, highs and lows. So, but if you still want to put in them in parentheses, it's totally up to you. I think you did the half and half. So, alrighty, Sophia, you are good. Angel, you have 8 finished. Okay, let me check out what you have so far. So I think Angel, you're almost completed. And then Emily, haven't received anything from you yet. About another minute to finish up as much as you can. Try to get at least to the 8. Okay, I think you have more highs than lows. So maybe see if you can reflect back on one more low, Angel, because I believe you have more highs than lows. So maybe try to add maybe one more low that happened this academic year that really impacted you. You don't have to add a lot of details. I'm the only one looking at this, but just so you can have it for your timeline. Alrighty, and then I think Emily, you have 9 already. I'll check yours in a bit, see maybe if we can finish up that. Alrighty, so what we're gonna do now, I'm just gonna quickly go back to the presentation and wrap up for today. So you don't forget, Next week, we are going to be going into more detail. We're going to pick 3 highs, 3 lows out of your list and put those on your timeline. When you are picking your 3 highs and 3 lows out of your list, definitely kind of pick experiences that maybe revealed something about who you are, what you believe in. You should definitely kind of talk on experiences that maybe change your perspectives about the world, about life, about your life, your family's life, someone else's life, something that, you know, thought was a really big thing but ended up being smaller, something that you thought was a small thing, but ended up being bigger. Or you should definitely pick experiences that you kind of took something away from that situation. Again, like the whole bad day. Maybe you really did have a very tough day, but you took some value out of it. You learned something about yourself or about the situation that made you kind of push forward and be able to move forward. So, with that being said, again, Kayla, Emily, and Christina, please stay back for a moment. But for the rest of you guys, seminars and study groups, same way next week. If you are not done with your PAQs, please come into work hour. If you're scheduled, Audi has been sending those messages. Please do not forget. Your assignments will be essential if you want to come back for next year for your senior year in the Y Scholars. So if there's any questions, any concerns, please reach out to us as soon as possible. Don't be like next week on Friday, like, hey, I'm not going to be able to finish this because we won't know what to tell you probably at the same time. Alrighty. So with that being said, I will see many of you guys either this week for work hour or next week. Hope you guys have a great week and day. I will see you guys later on. Thank you guys. Alrighty. Let me
Actually, I'll take host if that's okay.
Okay.
I'm just gonna